Well, hello once again, and another very warm welcome back to Classic Dirt Bike TV, where of course we do our very best to try and bring you more examples of those old school vintage racers from way back in the day, when of course the sport at that time was called scrambling and not the modern day equivalent of motocross. So right now we're going to take a look at actually a collection that we've already featured a couple of times here on my YouTube channel, but it appears that my viewers can't seem to get enough of looking at this wonderful and very rare collection of bikes. So right now we're going to dive straight into that video and take a look at Cecil Pearson's lovely collection of Rickman and Harry Stitt framed Jap Scramblers. So as I mentioned, we've already done a couple of videos on this very unique collection of Rickman JAP Scramblers, but it seems that my YouTube viewers, and of course myself included, just can't seem to get enough of looking at this fantastic collection of British made classics. Now, when we talk about rare and unique vintage dirt bike collections, these Cecil Pearson bikes certainly tick all the usual boxes when it comes to their looks, performance, and just general uniqueness, because as far as I'm aware, there's not another collection like it anywhere in Europe, and possibly even internationally. But no matter where these bikes go, you're almost guaranteed to find crowds of onlookers asking questions about their origins, or just to try and learn a little bit more about the parts used to construct them. And so these 5 machines that we're looking at here are all using 1960s British made Rickman frames, and their power plants are big, long stroking 4-stroke JAP or John Alfred Prestwich engines, which were originally designed and built by John Prestwich in the 1930s. So the combined age of each bike is at least 100 years old because of that 1960s chassis and the 1930s motor. So there's another little statistic to add to the many interesting facts about this collection. Now, Cecil's passion for building and racing these Jap Scramblers all really started with this number 11 bike, which he built for himself, and he raced it for quite a few years up until he found that good results weren't coming just as easily as they once did because of his maturing years. So he then decided just to pick and choose which events he took part in, and then use the rest of his spare time to build another Jap Scrambler with a Rickman frame. But fast forward another 8 or even 10 years or so, and Cecil's Jap building bike tally is now up to 9 bikes. But don't think for a minute that these machines are just a nice collection of old vintage racers to show off at motorcycle shows or dirt bike race events. Every one of these bikes is raced regularly in Cecil's native Northern Ireland, and frequently as well on the British mainland. And in terms of their competitiveness on the racetrack, in the pre-1965 or 68 vintage class, there's certainly not many bikes that can catch them for outright speed and grunt. And in this clip here you can see some of the bikes sitting in the paddock at the 2022 Drumlandrig Castle event, and there's always a crowd of onlookers and interested parties always looking to have a conversation with Cecil and try and learn a little bit more about this fantastic collection. Now, naturally, there's absolutely no way that Cecil could ride all of these bikes on his own, and that's why he has his own team of riders to put the bikes through their paces. And normally the crew consists of this man here on the left, James Thompson, who's basically a motorcycle riding machine, and if they could ever put a pair of handlebars on a washing machine, then this man here, James Thompson, would still win races on it. And another rider here that's part of the Jap race team, it's Adrian Lappin here on the right, who not only is a pretty good bike mechanic, he's also very quick riding these old Jap Scramblers. Now, another top rider in the Team Jap camp is John Griffiths, who's been riding for the team for quite a few years now, and when John's not helping out Cecil with his Japs, he sometimes takes out his big CCM for a blast around the track. Now, the fourth member of Team Jap is this young man here, Harry Stitt, who not only is one of the top riders in Cecil's team, he's actually the man that's responsible for building at least 3 of the chassis in the collection. So not only is Harry quick on an old dirt bike, he's also a very talented motorcycle engineer. And so currently the collection of bikes are made up of 5 or 6 Rickman frame bikes, all with Jap motors of course, and 3 of these Harry Stitt special framed machines that Cecil commissioned Harry to design and build specifically to take these Jap motors. And the combination of Harry's skills building the frame and Cecil's mechanical knowledge and expertise on these Jap engines makes this little bike into a very quick and agile vintage racer. But as you can see here, a couple of pictures there of those Harry Stitt frames just prior to being painted, and as you can see, the workmanship is absolutely first class with that superb welding and of course specific frame number relating to Cecil Pearson, but for sure a bespoke and very unique piece of engineering by young Harry Stitt. And so moving on to those Jap motors, which as I mentioned earlier were designed by John Alfred Prestwich way back in the 1930s, and initially these motors were intended for use as dirt track racers or speedway if you like, but John Prestwich didn't just design this racing engine, he also went on to build a multitude of different kinds of engines for agricultural use, and his power plants were also used in some of the early aeroplanes of their day. So he was a very talented engineer, and not bad for somebody who began his engineering career by making movie cameras in the early 1900s. And so the motors are a long stroking 600cc 4-stroke with a 2-valve cylinder head, and these beasties don't run on your regular gas but are fueled by methanol, which is what they were originally designed to run on in the 1930s. But it's said that the methanol fuel increases the power, and it also makes the engine run that little bit cooler, and it also reduces the risk of pre-ignition or pinking as it's sometimes known. Now again, dry clutches on these Jap motors with a primary chain to connect the clutch onto the crankshaft, but basically these work exactly the same as any other clutch, although they don't take too kindly to being held in for long periods, as they don't have oil to cool them as you have in a conventional setup. Now again, the transmissions on all of Cecil's Japs are Norton AMC gearboxes, which have proven themselves to be very reliable down the years, and if they ever need parts or repair, then it's usually a pretty easy fix. But no sump on these Jap motors, as they used total loss oil lubrication, which basically means that you top up the frame with oil, and once the motor gets started, this little external pump then pushes the lubricant through the motor, and the excess would then drip out of the bottom of the engine. But filling up the frame with oil was usually enough to do one or maybe even two races, but usually these were filled up after each race just to make sure that they didn't run out. Now the ignition system again was a self-contained battery and ignition pack, very similar to the interspan systems that are used on the CCM bikes, where you just charge the unit up prior to fixing it onto the bike, and normally this charge would be good enough for 2 or even 3 races, but riders always kept these ignition systems topped up just to be on the safe side. But as you can no doubt gather, this is a full-time job for Cecil, maintaining these bikes and keeping them running on the track. And some riders think that they've got it quite hard when they've got to get their single race bike all prepped for the next race event. But Cecil has 9 and sometimes even more bikes to prepare for his next JAP team encounter. So as you can see, he's a very busy man indeed. Now, one of the other headaches of keeping these JAPs running is the availability of spare parts, because naturally you just can't walk into your local motorcycle store and ask for parts for a 1930s JAP 4-stroker. But Cecil already has quite a good stock of engine and gearbox parts, but he says that he never seems to have enough, and he's always scouring the internet and other sources to see if he can find more JAP engine parts. And it still amazes me even yet as to how he manages to keep these bikes running, because it's not as if they're still making engine parts, and there'll certainly come a day when it just won't be possible to keep these machines on the track. So we are very privileged and thankful to Cecil for keeping the name of the great John Alfred Prestwich at the forefront of motorcycle racing, which is the main reason that he designed these motors in the first place as competition motorcycle engines. But as you'd expect, these JAPs are pretty awesome pieces of kit, with their sharp handling of those Rickman chassis, and of course the grunt and the torque that's given out by that methanol burning JAP engine. And we're going to take a look at some of these bikes in action on the track just shortly. But first, let's just get Cecil to give us a little demonstration on how easy it is to start one of these JAP motors. But of course, transporting these bikes around the country isn't an easy task, but certainly made slightly easier by using Cecil's custom-made trailer with its instantly recognisable graphics on the outside. So when the team turn up at any classic or vintage race event, then people know exactly what's in store. But inside, Cecil can normally squeeze in at least 7, but I do believe he's had more than 7 bikes of his JAP machines in the trailer at one go, but then he still has to leave room for all of the extra fuel and tools and all of the other associated paraphernalia that goes with keeping a race team on the track. But as you can see, it's all a bit of a tight squeeze. So let's just take a quick look at some of these bikes in action on the racetrack at Drumlandrig Castle and in Northern Ireland in 2022. And the commentary is the original that I recorded on the day of both of the events.
68 class, or basically the vintage class of this Drumlandrig event. And as you can see, another very good lineup of these old classic bikes. So as the bikes get ready to leave the line, looks like a good start there by Harry Stitt on that number 111 JAP machine. James Thompson in second place. Looks like John Griffiths is in third, so it's JAPs in places 1, 2 and 3 as they head into turn 1, but it's James Thompson, number 26, your race leader. Second is Harry Stitt, third is John Griffiths, fourth is on the Rickman JAP machine. As we've said before, another one of the many Rickman JAPs that Cecil Pearson has brought over from Northern Ireland. And as you can see, because although these bikes do look quite antiquated, they are very quick on the racetrack. As we take a look at number 33 there, that's John Griffiths from Northern Ireland. Another of the very talented riders from across the pond. Liston Bell is in fourth position in this race, turn 1, but still managed to get up to about third or fourth position in that race. But since then, James has certainly made up for that little hiccup at the start of race 1. So as he comes round to complete another lap, James Thompson at number 26 there. Second place should be Harry Stitt, number 111. John Griffiths is still in third place. Liston Bell is still in fourth. We will feature all of the racing from the Sunday in forthcoming videos. But it's James Thompson, still your race leader, number 26. Harry Stitt is still in there in second, number 111. That number 11 bike there is Adrian Lappin. That's also another Harry Stitt designed machine. Number 4, certainly seems to be no stopping this man here, number 26, James Thompson. And I'm looking forward to heading back to Northern Ireland in a couple of weeks' time to film these guys in action on their home turf at their charity scramble. So looking forward to going back to the Emerald Isle in a couple of weeks. But it's James Thompson, been another quite easy run to the checkered flag for James Thompson as he comes up to take the win. It's going to be Harry Stitt who's going to cross the line in second position, and we are taking a look at number 33, John Griffiths, who's going to cross the line in third. So that's Cecil Pearson JAPs in positions 1, 2 and 3. So that brings us to the final race in this part 3 video. This is a pre-74s, pre-70s and pre-65 pre-unit race. Basically the vintage bikes of this charity weekend, but it's James Thompson who appears to have made the early running. So it's James Thompson as they make their way up the hill. Harry Stitt is in second position. Cecil Pearson there has made a cracking start in third on his Harry Stitt JAP machine. So it's still number 26, James Thompson. It looks like James is riding a different machine from his previous races. I think this number 88 bike was ridden by Peter Turtle in earlier races, so it looks like James's number 1 race bike has some kind of problem. Second position is Harry Stitt. Number 1 Thompson as he comes round to complete lap 1. James, of course, is riding one of the 9 Rickman JAP machines that Cecil Pearson has brought along to this Craig Antlet weekend. 6 of those bikes, of course, have the Rickman frames, with 3 others having the Harry Stitt chassis on them. As we take a look at Jamie McMaster, number 199. I think Jamie's out on his CZ this time round, so another good start by Jamie. Leader and second placed position rider James Thompson and Harry Stitt, but it's still James Thompson with the lead over Harry Stitt there, number 111. And as I said earlier, this is a bike that Harry designed and built himself. So as you can see, not only is young Harry a very talented bike building engineer, he's quite quick at riding these machines as well. So here's our battle for first and second place positions between James Thompson and Harry Stitt. It looks like Harry's stalled his Jap engine going into that turn there, so we'll see how quick it takes Harry to get this thing running once again. And there you go, that's how easy you can start a Jap engine from a standing start. So Harry Stitt up and running once again, and thankfully Harry's not lost any track positions. But it's still number 88, James Thompson, who's looking very comfortable at the front of this race. James, of course, has already won 4 or 5 races over the course of the weekend between riding these Jap machines and taking part in the Twin Shock A grade races on his YZ Yamaha. So this has been a good weekend for James Thompson. So this has been another excellent ride here by this talented racer, James Thompson, as he heads towards the checkered flag. James, of course, is not riding his number 1 race bike. I think he must have had some kind of mechanical issue, so he's had to borrow a replacement machine from Cecil Pearson. But here's your second place man, Harry Stitt. Harry, of course, is still going to finish in second place despite stalling his machine into that corner, but it looks like James Thompson is heading towards yet another win to add to his tally for the weekend. Harry Stitt just going down the hill here. Harry's just about to pass his father there, number 70. So as we come to the conclusion of this part 3 video from the charity weekend, it looks like it's going to be another win here for James Thompson on the Cecil Pearson Jap machine, and it's going to be Harry Stitt who's going to cross the line in second position. And so there you have it, Cecil Pearson and his fantastic collection of Rickman and Harry Stitt framed Jap Scramblers that are not only a unique collection of machines that certainly wouldn't look out of place at any old vintage motorcycle event, but they're also still highly competitive more than 80 years after their John Alfred press switch power plants were first designed. But each and every time that you come across these Jap Scramblers, you just can't fail to be impressed by their rarity and their engineering, and I'm already looking forward to my next visit to Northern Ireland in 2023 and catching up with Cecil once again. And who knows, maybe even by that time he'll have added Jap bike number 10 to his already growing collection of Rickman Jap racers.